Bill Ford punished him immediately and demoted him from the Ford GT program. So one of the most collectible modern supercars, in my opinion, is a 2005 06 Ford GT. I'm often asked, what is the Ford GT I should buy? If you have the means, I recommend buying a 2006 Ford GT Heritage. By most standards, this would be the most collectible. In my opinion, is it the most beautiful Ford GT? That's a debate. I would say maybe a striped elite midnight blue, maybe my favorite, but that's a topic for another day. I really like the Ford GT because it's a low maintenance manual analog supercar that they actually produce in high quantity, 4,033 units for the world. In comparison, is quite high when you compare it to other supercars like the F40 or Carrera GT and other supercars of that nature. So the Ford GT is super collectible because it's got rock solid value. I look at the Ford GT like a Rolex. You can buy a Ford GT with 2,000 miles, put a target value on the car, and it's pretty easy to determine what a Ford GT with all 4 options is going to bring, and that's why collectors love them. So the Ford GT only came with 4 options: the Macintosh radio, the BBS lightweight wheels, the painted stripes, and the painted calipers. You could get optional gray or red calipers. And the stripes were painted on the top, but they were decals on the side. And standard, the car would come with no top stripe, and standard would be side stripe decal. One of my favorite Ford GTs is the Striped Elite. I think that is a car that is slept on. It's a unique Ford GT that did not produce many Striped Elites, and it sets apart from the standard red and white stripe, blue and white stripe cars, which there are many of. The most common Ford GT is the red with white stripes. There were 996 cars produced for the world with red and white stripes. That's going to be the most common Ford GT you'll see. If you go on Auto Trader, eBay, Bring Your Trailer, you can always find one for sale. You cannot find a midnight blue car, or there's not always a yellow car available. There's very few Heritages that come across my desk. And so those cars tend to bring a slight premium because they're more elusive, they're harder to come by. And collectors place high value on cars that are not always available for purchase. There were only 8 colors available for the 2005 06 Ford GT. There was yellow, white, red, black, midnight blue, tungsten for 06 only, and quicksilver, and then of course the most collectible Gulf Heritage livery. But what most people don't know is that there was a one-of-one Ford GT produced, Sonic Blue. This is the color of the stripes on a white GT with the blue stripes. It's a couple shades lighter than the standard midnight blue. The story of how this car came to exist was a Ford executive, Chris Theodore, had ordered a midnight blue Ford GT, and when the car was going down the assembly line, he swapped the paint in the gun to Sonic Blue, and the car was sprayed Sonic Blue, went down the assembly line, and once Ford executive Bill Ford noticed this car was slightly different, he issued a do not build. Bill Ford punished him immediately and demoted him from the Ford GT program, and basically he never received this Ford GT that I'm sure he would have loved to have. Ultimately, Ford Motor Company decided to complete this car that had already been painted, and so the car went down the assembly line for a second time. It's the only Ford GT to ever go down this assembly line twice, so I'm told. And because of that, the car was dubbed the nickname, the $1 Million GT. And I say that because the assembly workers gave this car impeccable attention to detail. As far as the panel gaps and fit and finish of this car, it is like a modern Ferrari or Porsche. If you know Ford GTs, the fit and finish was a little janky, some people would say, for a 6-figure car. Once it was completed, it was sent to a Ford dealer-only auction called the Cattleballs Ranch. And at the time, the auction lot name was One and Only. And it was donated by the Ford Motor Company at this auction, and it sold for, I believe, $400,000 US at the time. The MSRP on this car was only $156,000 with all 4 options. And so the car brought a great magnitude at the time. And as I said, it sold to a Ford dealer, and it went to a dealership in Georgia, which is pretty funny. And so the car stayed there until about 2008. In the financial crisis, the car ended up on eBay, still in delivery mileage condition. This car has never been titled, as it was owned by a dealership. The car is still on MSO, which means manufacturer state of origin. And this car has never been registered to its first owner. And so the ultimate collector car, in my opinion. This Ford GT sold to a group of 3 guys, Ford GT enthusiasts, who recognized how special this car was. They knew this was the only Ford GT produced in a custom color, as there was no special order system or process where you could custom order a Ford GT in a unique color. There was only those 8 colors you could choose from. So this car was bought by these 3 collectors up in the Northeast area, and basically they purchased this car on eBay at a great price of $250,000. And when they bought the car, they agreed as friends we would keep this car until we had an offer of $1 million. So these group of friends agreed not to sell this car until it reached $1 million. So they kept the car for probably 5 or 6 years, and ultimately one of the 3 guys being connected in the Ford GT community received a call. And that call was they had that offer they were waiting on, $1 million 7-figure offer for the Sonic Blue Ford GT. The one friend gathered the other 2 and their wives for dinner and told them, hey, we have great news. We have a 7-figure offer on Sonic Blue. One couple was ecstatic. Oh my gosh, we were so happy. That's great news. You know, we can send our kids to college. The second couple was not as happy. They had grown sentimental attachment to this very rare unicorn car, and they were pretty much freaking out. We don't want to sell Sonic Blue. That's our baby. Basically, their intentions had changed. And so this group of 3 friends had to come up with a resolution, which was the one couple that wanted to keep the car had to buy out the other 2 their share of ownership. And so that's what happened. This one couple took full ownership of the car at the time and kept Sonic Blue in their possession for another 5 years or so, until I came across this gentleman that owned the car. Please keep in mind, this vehicle was never for sale publicly since these 3 gentlemen owned the car. And I had gotten intel, this person in New Jersey owned this super rare Ford GT, and through the grapevine, I was able to get connected with him. So I started submitting offers on this car that was not for sale, which that process in itself was a year plus. As you could imagine, we offered him $1 million, and we didn't get much of a response. We would up the ante, a couple $100,000. Still the same response. The car's not for sale. We would go back and forth for many, many months. And ultimately, the owner came back to us with a crazy number. My customer really wanted this Ford GT as it was the only one-off custom color Ford GT produced. After a few months of digesting this crazy high price, he came to me and said, let's do the deal. The price of this car, which everybody wants to know, was probably 3 to 4 times the value of a delivery model Heritage at the time. It was very, very tough to come to terms with the valuation of this car, as it's a one-of-one car. It's on MSO. It's never been titled. It still has 140 miles on the car from new. So how do you value a car that's so rare? You really can't. It comes down to the classic saying of what somebody's willing to pay. And that's what we figured out on this car. I basically was given a blank check to go out and source this unicorn Ford GT that existed. And once we were able to locate the car, we were relentless. And we were able to complete a deal, and now the car sits in my client's Ford GT collection. So with the acquisition of Sonic Blue, we were able to complete the only collection in the world complete of every color Ford GT ever produced for the 2005 and 06 model.
This month of VINwiki Car Stories is brought to you by Bridgestone. We've talked a lot this year about the Potenza range of tires for sports cars and supercars, but what I'm personally most excited about right now is the Dueler AT Ascent. It is their latest and greatest tire for on-road and off-road capability. I've tried so many tires for my off-road kinds, but this really seems like it's going to be perfect. It's got full-depth interlocking 3D sipes and it is their latest and greatest product, so it should give me all the off-road capability and wet and snow and everything else that I want to put it through, as well as much better road manners. So check them out, as well as the whole range of Bridgestone products, to find out what's perfect for your ride at the link in the description below, and look forward to more amazing content on VINwiki from Bridgestone.